preparatory for transit to the super-universe worlds of ascending culture and spirit training. 7 times do those mortals who pass through the entire Mansonia career experience the adjustment sleep and the resurrection awakening. But the last resurrection hall, the final awakening chamber, was left behind on the 7th mansion world. No more will a form change necessitate the lapse of consciousness or a break in the continuity of personal memory. The mortal personality, initiated on the evolutionary worlds and tabernacled in the flesh, indwelt by the mystery monitors and invested by the Spirit of Truth, is not fully mobilized, realized, and unified until that day when such a Jerusalem citizen is given clearance for Adentia and proclaimed a true member of the Morancha Corps of Nebadon, an immortal survivor of a juster association, a paradise ascender, a personality of Morancha status, and a true child of the Most Highs. Now let me share some physical aspects of Jerusalem. It is 100 times as big as our Earth. It is divided into 1,000 latitudinal sections and 10,000 longitudinal zones. The sphere has 7 major capitals and 20 minor administrative centers. The standard mile is equal to 7 Urantia miles. The standard weight represents 10 ounces of your weight. The day equals 3 days of Urantia time, less an hour, 4 minutes and 15 seconds. The system year consists of 100 days. Since it is an architectural sphere, the energy is controlled and circulates about the sphere in the zone channels. The full light temperature is maintained at about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, while during the period of light recession it falls to a little lower than 50 degrees. There are no days and nights, no seasons of heat and cold. The power transformers maintain 100,000 centers from which rarefied energies are projected upward through the planetary atmosphere, undergoing certain changes until they reach the electric air ceiling of the sphere, and then these energies are reflected back and down as a gentle sifting and even light of about the intensity of Urantia sunlight when the sun is shining overhead at 10 o'clock in the morning. Under such conditions of lighting, the light rays do not seem to come from one place. They just sift out of the sky, emanating equally from all space directions. This light is very similar to natural sunlight, except that it contains very much less heat. Thus it will be recognized that such headquarters worlds are not luminous in space. If Jerusalem were very near Urantia, it would not be visible. This lighting of the sphere is uniformly maintained for 75% of the Jerusalem day, and there is a gradual recession until at the time of the minimum illumination the light is about that of your full moon on a clear night. This is the quiet hour for all Jerusalem. Only the broadcast receiving stations are in operation during this period of rest and rehabilitation. Jerusalem receives faint light from several nearby suns, a sort of brilliant starlight, but it is not dependent on them. Worlds like Jerusalem are not subject to the vicissitudes of sun disturbances, neither are they confronted with the problem of cooling or dying suns. The 7 transitional study worlds and their 49 satellites are heated, lighted, energized, and watered by the Jerusalem technique. On Jerusalem, you will miss the rugged mountain ranges of Urantia and other evolving worlds, since there are neither earthquakes nor rainfalls, but you will enjoy the beauteous highlands and other unique variations of topography and landscape. Enormous areas of Jerusalem are preserved in a natural state, and the grandeur of such districts is quite beyond the power of human imagination. There are thousands upon thousands of small lakes, but no raging rivers nor expansive oceans. There is no rainfall, neither storms nor blizzards, on any of the architectural worlds. But there is the daily precipitation of the condensation of moisture during the time of lowest temperature attending the light recession. The physical plant life and the Morontia world of living things both require moisture, but this is largely supplied by the subsoil system of circulation, which extends all over the sphere, even up to the very tops of the highlands. This water system is not entirely subsurface, for there are many canals interconnecting the sparkling lakes of Jerusalem. The atmosphere of Jerusalem is a three-gas mixture. This air is very similar to that of Urantia, with the addition of a gas adopted to the respiration of the Morontia order of life. This third gas in no way unfits the air for the respiration of animals or plants of the material orders. The transportation system is allied with the circulatory streams of energy movement, these main energy currents being located at 10-mile intervals. By adjustment of physical mechanisms, the material beings of the planet can proceed at a pace varying from 200 to 500 miles per hour. The transport birds fly at about 100 miles an hour. The air mechanisms of the material suns travel around 500 miles per hour. Material and early Morontia beings must utilize these mechanical means of transport, but spirit personalities proceed by liaison with the superior forces and spirit sources of energy. Jerusalem and its associated worlds are endowed with the 10 standard divisions of physical life characteristic of the architectural spheres of Nebuchadnezzar. And since there is no organic evolution on Jerusalem, there are no conflicting forms of life, no struggle for existence, no survival of the fittest. Rather is there a creative adaptation which foreshadows the beauty and harmony and the perfection of the eternal worlds of the central and divine universe. And in all this creative perfection, there is the most amazing intermingling of physical and of Morontia life, artistically contrasted by the celestial artisans and their fellows. Jerusalem is indeed a foretaste of the paradisical glory and grandeur, but you can never hope to gain an adequate idea of these glorious architectural worlds by any attempted description. There is so little that can be compared with aught on your world, and even then the things of Jerusalem so transcend the things of Urantia that the comparison is almost grotesque. Until you actually arrive on Jerusalem, you can hardly entertain anything like a true concept of the heavenly worlds. But that is not so long a time in the future, when your coming experience on the system capital is compared with your sometime arrival on the more remote training spheres of the universe, the super-universe and Abhavona. The manufacturing or laboratory sector of Jerusalem is an extensive domain, one which Urantians would hardly recognize since it has no smoking chimneys. Nevertheless, there is an intricate material economy associated with these special worlds, and there is a perfection of mechanical technique and physical achievement which would astonish and even awe your most experienced chemists and inventors. Mount Seraph is the highest elevation on Jerusalem, almost 15,000 feet, and is the point of departure for all transport seraphim. Numerous mechanical developments are used in providing initial energy for escaping the planetary gravity and overcoming the air resistance. A seraphic transport departs every 3 seconds of Urantia time throughout the light period and sometimes far into the recession. The transporters take off at about 25 standard miles per second of Urantia time and do not attain standard velocity until they are over 2,000 miles away from Jerusalem. Transports arrive on the crystal field, the so-called Sea of Glass. Around this area are the receiving stations for the various orders of beings who traverse space by seraphic transport. Near the polar crystal receiving station for student visitors, you may ascend the Pearly Observatory and view the immense relief map of the entire headquarters planet. The super-universe and paradise Havona broadcasts are received on Jerusalem in liaison with Salvington and by a technique involving the polar crystal, the Sea of Glass. In addition to provisions for the reception of these extra-Nebadon communications, there are 3 distinct groups of receiving stations. These separate but tricircular groups of stations are adjusted to the reception of broadcasts from the local worlds, from the constellation headquarters, and from the capital of the local universe. And all these broadcasts are automatically displayed so as to be discernible by all types of beings present in the central broadcasting amphitheater. Of all preoccupations for an ascending mortal on Jerusalem, none is more engaging and engrossing than that of listening in on the never-ending stream of universe-space reports. This Jerusalem broadcasting receiving station is encircled by an enormous amphitheater constructed of scintillating materials largely unknown on Urantia and seating over 5 billion beings, material and Morontia, besides accommodating innumerable spirit personalities. It is the favorite diversion of all Jerusalem to spend their leisure at the broadcast station, there to learn of the welfare and state of the universe, and this is the only planetary activity which is not slowed down during the recession of light. At this broadcast receiving amphitheater, the Salvington messages are coming in continuously. Nearby, the Adentia word of the Most High Constellation Fathers is received at least once a day. Periodically, the regular and special broadcasts of Uversa are relayed through Salvington, and when paradise messengers are in reception, the entire population is assembled around the Sea of Glass, and the Uversa friends add the reflectivity phenomena to the technique of the paradise broadcast so that everything heard becomes visible. And it is in this manner that continual foretastes of advancing beauty and grandeur are afforded the mortal survivors as they journey inward on the eternal adventure. The Jerusalem sending station is located at the opposite pole of the sphere. All broadcasts to the individual worlds are relayed from the system capitals except the Michael messages, which sometimes go direct to their destinations over the Archangel circuit. The system capitals are unique in that they are the only worlds which exhibit well-nigh perfectly all 3 phases of universe existence: the material, the Morontial, and the spiritual. Whether you are a material, Morontia, or spirit personality, you will feel at home on Jerusalem. So also do the combined beings, such as the midway creatures and the material sons. Jerusalem has great buildings of both material and Morontia types, while the embellishment of the purely spiritual zones is no less exquisite and replete. If I only had words to tell you the Morontia counterparts of the marvelous physical equipment of Jerusalem, if I could only go on to portray the sublime grandeur and exquisite perfection of the spiritual appointments of this headquarters world, your most imaginative concept, perfection of beauty, and repleteness of appointment would hardly approach these grandeurs. And Jerusalem is but the first step on the way to the supernal perfection of paradise beauty. Now that was words of the author of this paper. The residential reservations assigned to the major groups of universe life are designated the Jerusalem circles. One of the circles of the residences is assigned to the ascending mortals. Each of these residential groupings consists of 7 concentric and successively elevated circles. They are all constructed along the same lines, but are of different sizes and are fashioned of differing materials. They are all surrounded by far-reaching enclosures which mount up to form extensive promenades entirely encompassing every group of 7 concentric circles. These 7 circles are surrounded by the exhibit panorama of Jerusalem, 5,000 standard miles in circumference, which is devoted to the presentation of the advancing status of the peopled worlds of our system, and is constantly revised so as to truly represent up-to-date conditions on the individual planets. I doubt not that this vast promenade overlooking the circle of the angels will be the first sight of Jerusalem to claim your attention when you are permitted extended leisure on your earlier visits. These exhibits are in the charge of the native life of Jerusalem, but they are assisted by the ascenders from the various system worlds who are tarrying on Jerusalem en route to Edentia. The portrayal of planetary conditions and world progress is effected by many methods, some known to you, but mostly by techniques unknown on Urantia. These exhibits occupy the outer edge of this vast wall. The remainder of the promenade is almost entirely open, being highly and magnificently embellished. The circles of the ascending mortals. The central area of the circles of the ascending mortals is occupied by a group of 619 planetary memorials representative, and these structures periodically undergo extensive changes. It is the privilege of the mortals from each world to agree from time to time upon certain of the alterations or additions to their planetary memorials. Many changes are even now being made in the Urantia structures. The center of these 619 temples is occupied by a working model of Edentia and its many worlds of ascendant culture. This model is 40 miles in diameter and is an actual reproduction of the Edentia system, true to the original in every detail. Ascenders enjoy their Jerusalem services and take pleasure in observing the techniques of other groups. Everything done in these various circles is open to the full observation of all Jerusalem. The activities of such a world are of 3 distinct varieties: work, progress, and play. Stated otherwise, they are service, study, and relaxation. The composite activities consist of social intercourse, group entertainment, and divine worship. There is great educational value in mingling with diverse groups of personalities, orders very different from one's own fellows. Edentia, our constellation capital. I will share just a little about our constellation capital, just so you can appreciate why there was a Garden of Eden prepared for Adam and Eve to live in when they came to the earth. Centrally located in this magnificent garden is the worship shrine of the Most Highs. The psalmist must have known something about these things, for he wrote, quote, "Who shall ascend the hill of the Most Highs? Who shall stand in this holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul to vanity, nor sworn deceitfully." End of quote. At this shrine, the Most Highs, on every 10th day of relaxation, lead all Edentia in the worshipful contemplation of God the Supreme. The system capitals are particularly beautified with material and mineral constructions, while the universe headquarters is more reflective of spiritual glory. But the capitals of the constellations are the acme of Morontia activities and living embellishments. On the constellation headquarters worlds, living embellishments is more generally utilized, and it is this predominance of life, botanic artistry, that causes these worlds to be called, quote, the gardens of God, end quote. About 1/2 of Edentia is devoted to the exquisite gardens of the Most Highs, and these gardens are among the most entrancing Morontia creations of the local universe. This explains why the extraordinarily beautiful places on the inhabited worlds of our constellation are so often called the Garden of Eden. The architectural worlds enjoy 10 forms of life of the material order. On Urantia there is plant and animal life, but on such a world as Edentia there are 10 divisions of the material orders of life. Were you to view these 10 divisions of Edentia life, you would quickly classify the first 3 as vegetable and the last 3 as animal. But you would be utterly unable to comprehend the nature of the intervening 4 groups of prolific and fascinating forms of life. Even the distinctive animal life is very different from that of the evolutionary worlds, so different that it is quite impossible to portray to mortal minds the unique character and affectionate nature of these non-speaking creatures. There are thousands upon thousands of living creatures which your imagination could not possibly picture. The whole animal creation is of an entirely different order from the gross animal species of the evolutionary planets. But all this animal life is most intelligent and exquisitely serviceable, and all the various species are surprisingly gentle and touchingly companionable. There are no carnivorous creatures on such architectural worlds. There is nothing in all Edentia to make any living being afraid. The vegetable life is also very different from that of Urantia, consisting of both material and Morontia varieties. The material growths have a characteristic green coloration, but the Morontia equivalent of vegetative life have a violet or orchid tinge of varying hue and reflection. Such Morontia vegetation is purely an energy growth. When eaten, there is no residual portion. Being endowed with 10 divisions of physical life, not to mention the Morontia variations, these architectural worlds provide tremendous possibilities for the biologic beautification of the landscape and of the material and the Morontia structures. The celestial artisans direct the native Spernogia in this extensive work of botanic decoration and biologic embellishment. Whereas your artists must resort to inert paint and lifeless marble to portray their concepts, the celestial artisans and the Univitatia more frequently utilize living materials to represent their ideas and to capture their ideals. If you enjoy the flowers, shrubs, and trees of Urantia, then will you feast your eyes upon the botanical beauty and the floral grandeur of the supernal gardens of Edentia. But it is beyond my powers of description to undertake to convey to the mortal mind an adequate concept of these beauties of the heavenly worlds. Truly, eye has not seen such glories as await your arrival on these worlds of the mortal ascension adventure. Salvington, the capital of our universe. I will not attempt to describe our universe capital, but will invite you to read the Urantia revelation and experience the beauty of revealed truth. Enjoy the marvelous presentation of our Savior's bestowal life on Urantia. Salvington is the capital of our universe, and it is where our Savior, Jesus Christ, has his headquarters as sovereign of our universe, a Michael son of the Father, sometimes referred to because of that as Christ Michael. Before departing from their native local universes for the super-universe receiving worlds, the mortals of time are recipients of spirit confirmation from the Creator Son and the local universe Mother Spirit. From this point on, the status of the ascending mortal is forever settled. Let me close with the words of Jesus. On page 1711, Jesus is quoted as saying, "And now let me declare to you, once and for all time, that I have come down upon the earth not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the final will of him who sent me, that of all those he has given me, I should not lose one. And this is the will of the Father, that everyone who beholds the Son and who believes him shall have eternal life." And again he said, "Never forget, there is only one adventure which is more satisfying and thrilling than the attempt to discover the will of the living God, and that is the supreme experience of honestly trying to do that divine will. And fail not to remember that the will of God can be done in any earthly occupation. Some callings are not holy and others secular. All things are sacred in the lives of those who are spirit-led, that is, subordinated to truth, ennobled by love, dominated by mercy, and restrained by fairness, justice. The Spirit which my Father and I shall send into the world is not only the Spirit of truth, but also the Spirit of idealistic beauty. When you once begin to find God in your soul, presently you will begin to discover him in other men's souls, and eventually in all the creatures and creation of a mighty universe. But what chance does the Father have to appear as a God of supreme loyalties and divine ideals in the souls of men who give little or no time to the thoughtful contemplation of such eternal realities? While the mind is not the seat of the spiritual nature, it is indeed the gateway thereto." End of quote. I pray we will all do our work on this earth as for God, and so live our lives that we will be found worthy to receive our Father's gift of eternal life. you.